One Wild Night is told from 3 different points of view. Listen as we chat about forgetting your reusable bags, proper hit and run etiquette, and bros being bros. Then we find out if Go stands the test of time.
Test of time, James and Alan have their say. Do the movies you love still hold up today? James says gladiator with a glut, and Alan says as a father blah blah. It's the test of time, James and Alan have their say. Do the movies you love still hold up today? Test of time, James and Alan have their say. Do the movies you love still hold up today?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Test of Time podcast. I'm James Brief, and let's go to my podcast partner, Alan Noah.
I see what you did there, James, and let's go to talk about Go. This was a movie that had been on the list for a while. I think it had just kind of gotten reshuffled. And then I think the most recent time it came up was when we talked about Mr. and Mrs. Smith, because that was also directed by Doug Liman. I've also been seeing Doug Liman's name around more recently because he directed the Roadhouse reboot, remake, whatever you want to call it. Have you watched the new Roadhouse?
I saw the beginning of it.
Okay, how was it?
You know, it knows exactly what it is.
Okay.
Jake Gyllenhaal's a great actor, and I hear that Conor McGregor is really good in the film. I really actually didn't get much to him.
So what, you just got bored? You just got tired?
Actually, I was watching with someone, and they wanted to switch to something else. So I was like, okay.
Because sometimes that's a bad sign of like you start a movie and then you're like, no.
No, actually, I'm interested in watching it again. However, I have not seen Oppenheimer yet, and that's going to be, I'm going to, set aside 3 hours to watch this film. No, Roadhouse might be something. I might be doing a little bit something else while I watch it.
I was kind of curious about it, and then I heard some really, really bad things about it. I wasn't that into the original. I don't really think I need to. Maybe someday if the kids are asleep and Courtney's on a work trip and I've got nothing else to do, maybe I'd put that on, but I'm not really dying to. I heard that Conor McGregor was awful in it.
It depends what your, what your expectations are.
Fair. I mean, I agree with you that Jake Gyllenhaal is a good actor. I was listening to a podcast with him the other day, and he was talking about making it and how much he loves the original and the reverence that he has for it. And that kind of made me a little bit more curious. But then I just saw more bad reviews. Also, not just bad reviews from critics, but also from just like friends on Facebook who are, saying this is dog shit, do not bother, holy crap, what the fuck. So I was like, all right, well, I mean, if it was only snooty critics who were saying that it was bad, that would be one thing, but it was a snooty critics and friends. So I'm like, okay, I'm not that interested. But let's talk about Doug Liman's second movie. His first movie was Swingers, but let's talk about his second movie, Go. It's about a single night told from 3 different perspectives. First up is Rana, a grocery store employee who's broke and facing eviction. When 2 men come into her supermarket looking for ecstasy, she decides that's a perfect way to make money. But when she suspects that the buyers are undercover cops, she flushes the drugs, replaces them with over-the-counter pills, and gives those to Todd, the drug dealer. Todd finds out about her deception and threatens Rana, but she is then hit by a car. The movie then shifts to Rana's coworker Simon, who takes a road trip to Las Vegas. While there, he has a threesome and nearly burns down his hotel room. He and his friend Marcus then go to a strip club, and when Simon is threatened by a bouncer for groping a stripper, Simon shoots the bouncer in the arm. He, Marcus, and their friends escape from the bouncer and his gangster father, but they leave behind the credit card they borrowed from Todd. The movie then pivots to the point of view of Zach and Adam, 2 actors who have been forced to go undercover to buy drugs. Yes, they're the 2 guys from Rana's story. Burke, the cop who is overseeing the deal, invites the guys to his home for Christmas dinner and tries to get them to invest in a multi-level marketing scheme. Later, we find out that they're the ones in the car who hit Rana. They flee the scene, but then come back to dispose of the body. When they find out that she's still alive, they put her on top of another car so people will see Rana and take her to a hospital. That was a long synopsis. I don't need to ask you if this was a hit or not. I know this was kind of a dud at the box office, but it kind of found an audience later, and it was a movie that was popular on DVD and kind of had a longer life, but it was not a box office smash, right?
No, I mean it's the kind of film that probably did well in the end. It opened at number 6 with $4.7 million. You know, a movie was number 1 that weekend.
No, I do not.
Actually, they recently announced a 5th movie in the franchise.
Oh, The Matrix.
Yeah, the Matrix. Number 2 is a Drew Barrymore film. I believe it's with Luke Wilson. She goes undercover in high school.
Never Been Kissed?
That's right, Never Been Kissed. And number 3, this is the film that I first learned about Heath Ledger. It's a sort of remake of a Shakespeare play called The Taming of the Shrew.
Oh, 10 Things I Hate About You.
That's right, 10 Things I Hate About You. And this film came out, it was at number 6 with $4.7 million. So it wound up getting $16 million domestically, $28 million worldwide. That's not really very profitable at the box office, but I'm sure HBO and eventually VHS and DVDs eventually were profitable. I was studying abroad, and I actually saw this randomly. It was Tel Aviv. I had a few hours to kill. It's really hot there, so I went to an air-conditioned movie theater, knew really nothing about it, and I probably mostly knew that Katie Holmes was in this film. And right. I've seen it a couple times in pieces. I think this might be the first or second time I've seen it in its entirety since it came out 25 years ago.
I was trying to remember when I first saw it, and I'm not totally sure. I know that I had seen it before. There were definitely moments that felt familiar to me. I vaguely remember an ex-girlfriend of mine talking about how much she liked the movie. Maybe I watched it with her. I don't really remember, but I feel like I saw it in college around the time that it came out. Not in the theater, but at some point shortly thereafter, 99, 2000, 2001. This was definitely my second time watching the movie all the way through, start to finish. And I guess as we're talking about it, it's probably best to kind of follow the way that the movie does it in the 3 different sections. So we can start with Rana. And the first thing that kind of leapt out at me from a test of time perspective was the fact that she's working in a grocery store and she says paper or plastic. And this is true in New York and several other places. I don't think it's everywhere in the country, but plastic bags at a supermarket, 25 years later, we don't do that.
It's interesting, like, you go other places, either in the world or even in the United States, and oh yeah, they still do the plastic bags. That is really interesting.
Well, and this movie takes place in LA. It's been a while since I've been to a grocery store in LA, but I've got to assume if they've outlawed plastic bags in New York, they did it first in California.
Oh, way before. I used to visit my buddy Andy in LA all the time, and I remember going to Ralph's, and when we would order too much stuff, like, we would not buy a reusable bag. So we would just wind up having to, like, carry in our arms because we were too cheap to buy a reusable or too dumb to remember to bring one.
I might have missed this, James. Do we know definitively how old Rana is? Because she says to Burke, after she kind of suspects that he's a cop, she says that she's 17 and she's drinking a beer. But is she lying about that just to get out of the situation? Do we know for sure how old she is?
I actually suspect that they are high school seniors or something to that extent.
But that's weird, though, because her whole motivation is that she needs money because she's going to be evicted. Now, it's possible that she's 17 years old and is paying her own rent. But if that's the case, there's more to the story. Right? Like there's something else going on.
That's a very good point.
Like a sick mom, a dead dad, a sick sister that she's got to take care of something. And if any of that is true, then mention it. Then we'll have more sympathy for her and her plight. Not that being evicted on its own doesn't suck. I mean, that's a shitty, horrible thing that happens to people. And if it happens to young people, of course, that's heartbreaking. But I felt like her main motivation was thin, kind of in general. And then, wait, if she's 17, what the fuck? Like, I can accept the fact that you're probably not supposed to think about that. And I just wasn't sure if it was like a continuity error or no, she's 17 years old, broke, working at a grocery store. There's a lot more going on. And yeah, fuck, we need to feel worse for her. But it's weird that the movie doesn't explain that. The reason I was hung up on that is Rana makes so many stupid fucking decisions right out of the gate with deciding that she's gonna deal drugs and then fucking over this dangerous drug dealer guy and then selling the fake drugs. So I wanted to know if she was a dumb kid making dumb kid mistakes, or if there was kind of more to it than that. I think she's just a dumb kid making dumb choices.
I think she's dumb and she's desperate because she's about to be evicted. That's an incredibly scary thing. I don't feel like this is the kind of girl that can ask her mom and dad for rent. Like, even her friends, they don't seem to be able to even house her because they're like, what are you going to do when you get evicted? What are you going to do about the rent? What are you going to do about it? No one's like, yeah, you're crashing my place.
Right.
The reality is, she's not approached to buy drugs because they want to approach a random cashier. They want to approach Simon.
Right.
He's obviously a drug dealer, and he deals, he's like a lower down guy from this guy, Todd, who is played by younger Timothy Oliphant. And the undercover guys that come in to try to buy, they're trying to find Simon, but we've seen in a scene before that Simon has switched. He's no longer working right now, and he's off his shift. So they decide, they panic. These guys who we later learn are working with the undercover cops, and they just go to this cashier. They go, can you get us pills? And like, she knows how cheap ecstasy pills are, and they're like $10 each. She figures they're buying 20 pills for $20 each. You make $10 profit. There's $200. If I just say yes, all my problems are solved. I really don't think it's that hard to understand why she said yes. Look, she did a very stupid thing. We could talk about the morals of dealing drugs, but she's desperate. She needs this money. And these are like young guys that are like, hey, can you just help us out? And we usually go see Simon about this. It just seems so easy. And of course, it seems too easy.
So she comes up with the plan. The ecstasy pills are more expensive than she's expecting them to be. So she doesn't have enough cash. And Todd, the drug dealer, says, you have to leave something with me because, she's saying, oh, I'll pay you back. He doesn't believe her. So for collateral, she leaves her friend, played by Katie Holmes. Her name's Claire. And I don't understand this. Like, you can't leave a person as collateral because at a certain point, she could just be like, yeah, fuck this, I'm leaving. And then does he keep her there? Because then that's kidnapping, and maybe he doesn't want to go from drug dealing to kidnapping. Maybe he does. I don't know. I like the logic of that, I felt was really, really hard to swallow.
I actually didn't think it was illogical, not at all. She's like, I'll be back with $400 in 20 minutes. So I'll give you 200 now, and I'll be back to give you the next 100 in 20 minutes. That was the idea. It makes perfect sense, logically. I mean, to a teenager doing this.
I understand that, but it doesn't make any sense from Todd's point of view. Why would Todd agree to that?
Oh.
He goes on the whole long rant about how he's not going to do any favors and he'd rather give head than give favors and he doesn't give head and ha ha ha. But like, if he doesn't trust this girl Rana, which he says that he doesn't, why would he accept this as collateral? Collateral is a thing worth money so that if she doesn't come back, he can sell the thing. He can't do that with Claire.
No, collateral is something of value that is worth it to him if he cannot get his the thing he loans out back. And she does have something of value, and as we learn later, he totally does dig Claire. I mean, it's Katie Holmes. She's a beautiful young woman. He doesn't necessarily think anything's going to happen, but the answer is because they're pretty girls. I think that's what it was, and it's kind of logical for him too.
Okay, all right. So after Rana flushes the pills, she buys the fake ones. She goes to the rave and starts selling them. I thought it was clever when she's selling these pills that are just aspirin, allergy medicine, whatever to kids. And she's like, smoke a lot of pot with it. Then you'll really feel it. Right. And I thought that was kind of clever. All right, because, these kids are young. They're dumb. They don't know. They'll be high, so they will have no qualms with her. They're not going to go finding her, demanding a refund or anything like that. But eventually Todd comes to the club. He figures it out. She completely ditches her friend Manny, like underneath some sheet metal, and is like, I'll come back for you later. And that's the joke, that she completely forgets about him till the last, 60 seconds of the movie or something like that. But he shows up with a gun. Do you think he was going to kill her?
I think he very well might. because word will get out that she ripped him off. I mean, I'm kind of being like Michael Scott from The Office here. I'm basing everything I know from movies, which it would be the stereotypes of drug dealers. But, from like a Breaking Bad perspective, I would imagine that when someone humiliates you like that, you need to send a message, and he's going to murder her. Yes, I think he is going to murder her. She says, like, I have like $400 here. Like, you can have all of it. And he's like, it's too late for that. Yeah, I think he was going to kill her. I do.
Okay. All right. Then that just goes to show that she is just really, really stupid. And, her decisions start dumb and then just get dumber to the point where it nearly got her killed. All right, well, let's move on to Simon and his story in Vegas. It starts with him in the trunk of a car while they're going to Vegas. They never explain that. Like, that's just supposed to be a joke, like a prank his friends are pulling on him. Like, maybe they're not really his friends. Is that it?
It's their friends. It's a prank. I think it's kind of funny. I think it's a good way to actually establish that these four guys are bros. They do not seem like lifelong bros. They seem like, all right, we're living in LA and we're bros. But Taye Diggs' character is quickly growing apart from this group.
Yeah, I mean, he's clearly the more mature one of the group.
But he doesn't fit in with them. Like, he doesn't fit in with, like, Simon or these, like, Breckenmeyer and the other guy. They just seem like such buffoons. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. I'm just saying that these are, clowning around guys. They have every right in the world to be 25 and just clowning around going to Vegas. It just seems like Taye Diggs, his character, is like, what the fuck am I doing with these guys the entire time?
Like, when he's explaining the whole tantric sex thing, you can see it on his face that he's, like, just exasperated. He knows they're not going to get it. He knows they don't care. He knows that these guys are not interested in becoming good lovers to their partners. They just want to get off and go home. And you can see that in his face. But you mentioned the word bros. And not only does this section of the movie feature bros, but it really felt to me like this movie was written by bros. Like, the jokes were devised by bros. Like, they go to a buffet and they eat shrimp and then they have to poop because they ate bad shrimp from a buffet. I mean, that's low-hanging fucking fruit. Like, that is not a witty joke. Then Simon's with these two bridesmaids and one of them has to put a tissue up her nose when she's smoking pot, and then of course that catches on fire. Like, these kinds of jokes, and I'm using jokes with air quotes, it just seems like bros in a fraternity house got stoned or got drunk and they were pitching these ideas for jokes and they were cracking up. I just didn't find any of this shit funny.
I don't think you necessarily have to find it funny. I think that they are kind of, they're just bros.
Right. But similar to Rana's story, Simon just makes stupid decision after stupid decision. They go to a strip club. Marcus, Taye Diggs' character, says, whatever you do, don't get the champagne. Don't go into the champagne room. Immediately he says, let's get the champagne and go into the champagne room. The bouncer says, whatever you do, don't touch the girls. What does he do? He grabs one of the girls' asses. Then he shoots the fucking bouncer. Why? Why would you shoot the fucking bouncer?
This was not a gunfight. Someone takes out a gun, you take out a gun, defend yourself. He's going to get literally thrown out like Jazz in Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. This guy was not going to end his life and put him in a coma because he, touched the girl's butt for a second.
Again, they're dumb characters, but I was not at all invested in this story. I get that it was supposed to be fun for a bro to watch these bros do their bro thing, and maybe I'm just old and way past my bro years, but the whole Vegas sequence, I was just like kind of waiting for it to end.
I do get why they ended up in the strip club, because Taye Diggs, who was wearing, admittedly, a ridiculous jacket, it was like either solid yellow or solid green, which does look like a valet jacket, but it's not that much of a valet. I think it was more that this guy in a Ferrari was a super racist and saw a black guy in a solid colored shirt outside of a hotel and just threw him the keys. And I think this same thing had happened to him earlier in the hotel, where people thought he was like on staff because of his jacket. The two of them go in the car. It's kind of a Ferris Bueller's Day Off, but more like deservedly, that at least he had a right to go joyriding.
Right. But, like, were you invested in these characters? Were you, like, invested in Simon? Did you want Simon to get away? Were you really hoping that he was going to escape? Like, I just didn't give a shit.
I mean, I think Simon's a fun character, but I did not give a shit because he seems like a shithead. You know, like, the first thing he says to Sarah Polley's character, Rana, is he's like, I'll give you $200 for your shift. I'll throw in an extra 100 for a blowjob. And he's a total douche. You do not root for this guy. I do root for Marcus, because Marcus was treated like the black help when he was given this Ferrari. And I think, you know what? Yeah. Go ahead, drive this shit around. It's 1999, so there's not cameras everywhere. Just inside the casino, there's cameras. But I felt bad for Marcus being thrown into this situation, and even to an extent, the two other bros in the hotel room, because I still don't think these guys deserve to almost be murdered by the mob. So I did feel bad for 3 out of 4 of them. And Simon, I mean, he did something stupid. Did Simon mean to shoot him, or did they fight and the gun went off?
No. He shoots him.
Okay.
He means to shoot him.
All right, then Simon deserves everything that happened to him, because that, I guess, is attempted murder. I don't think he was aiming to just hit the bouncer in the shoulder.
Right. I agree with you that Simon is a piece of shit. And before, with Rana, I'm like, she's doing shitty things too. And I feel a little bit bad for her because of the evicted thing. But I have zero sympathy for Simon. Let's move on to the last segment of the movie with Zach and Adam. And you could feel bad for them, because these guys do not want to be setting up this girl, Rana, for a drug deal. They're in a shitty situation because they got busted for possession, which I don't really know how these things work, but really? Like, you could get busted for possession and then have to go undercover to bust the next person up on the drug dealer food chain? That seems like a stretch to me.
I don't know about the possession part, but these things do happen. I mean, there are definitely stories about people that have had to do, and sometimes they go horribly, horribly wrong. Those are the things I've read about, that, some girl had, either she had possession of something, or she was selling weed to, like, her friends and wound up, like, having to buy a whole bunch of drugs undercover, and then she's caught undercover and murdered. I don't think it's very common. My real true guess is that this was all William Fichtner's character's way of getting 2 actors into his multi-level marketing scheme. I think he has the authority to, quote-unquote, recruit civilians into his scheme if he needs to. So he recruits these people. There is this thing that the actors Scott Wolf and Jay Moore keep asking for, which is basically their release form of, like, the arrest never happened. But my guess is that they were caught with a little bit of marijuana or something in 1999. And I think this cop said to him, do this whole song and dance. Maybe we'll catch this Simon guy. But if I don't, I have the 2 stars of it. They don't say what show it is, but it's some network TV show. And I could definitely get these guys in my multi-level marketing. It's not just you selling products for a company and you're just an independent seller. I'll sell you a bunch of basketballs and you sell the basketballs at profit. Great. That's a perfect capitalistic business. But the way multi-level marketing works is this: you don't just sell basketballs, Alan. You could get 5 people beneath you to sell basketballs for $20 each. And then you'll get $5 of each of those, and you just give me $1 of each of that $5. That's multi-level marketing, but you always need more and more recruits, and these people are quite desperate. I don't know if you've ever met any, they call them MLM, multi-level marketing people, but they are quite desperate, and they will sell you dubious stuff. So I think mostly he was dragging these guys along so that he could get the dinner at the end, which I thought was kind of a funny twist I did not see coming.
That twist was one of the very, very few things I remembered about the movie, because it's all set up that they're into some weird sex stuff You think like they're swingers or whatever. And no, it's just a multi-level marketing thing. I knew a woman who sold Avon and she was not at all aggressive about it. I knew someone else I think did Mary Kay and she was very aggressive about it. Courtney's been to a Pampered Chef party or two and come home with a spatula and hasn't been heavily recruited. So I think that these things do exist. I don't know how aggressive people still are in 2024, but what I am more confident about is that this joke would not really land in a movie released today. You know, in 99, they have to say, oh, you mean like Amway? And then everyone in the audience is going to get it because that's the most famous MLM out there.
At the time, I don't think Amway is famous anymore. I mean, I don't think these MLMs stick around too long. I think they kind of change names, you know, Herbalife.
Amway is still around.
Something else. Okay, Amway's around, but it was a dated joke. That did not stand the test of time.
Exactly. But then also, you know, I can feel bad for these characters because they got sucked into this MLM bullshit. But then they run over Rana and leave her for dead. They find out that she's not dead, and their solution is they just throw her on another car and figure someone else will find her. These two are also shitty, shitty fucking people.
They did a horrible thing with the hit and run. Absolutely, absolutely. But I thought they went back to help her.
No.
Hit and run is bad, but folks, if you did make that horrible decision to hit and run, you can still go back. I don't know what the law is, actually, but I mean, from a moral point of view, I thought they tried to go back to help her.
No, they go back to dispose of the body because they realize that Adam was still wearing a wire.
You're right. They do go back to help her because they thought she was wearing a wire. Maybe they would be hearing him. They wouldn't because that thing is well out of range. But once they find out she was alive, I feel like they made the right moral decision. In my mind, I think they get a little bit of redemption. Because in a darker movie, once they found out she was alive, oh my God, are they going to think, oh, no, we better just put our hand over her mouth and just kill her and do our original plan, get rid of the body.
That's what they do.
But then they don't.
Yeah. I also, from a test of time perspective, he's going to beat her to death with a club, the thing that goes on the steering wheels, or that went on steering wheels in the late 90s, early 2000s. But yeah, they decide to not kill her, but then they just leave her there in the parking lot. I mean, they even say, like, oh, we did the right thing. Did we? Well, kind of. Right enough. Ha ha ha. I mean, it's not right.
You know, what you say is exactly right now. I actually agree with what you're saying. I forgot that they did go to just get rid of the body, and there is a moment where they do decide that they're going to off her, but they don't. And I think that they are getting a redemption by not killing her. If there is a heaven and hell, if they're actors, they better visit a lot of Make-A-Wish kids to make up for this. I'm not saying I agree that these people are redeemed, but I think the character arc of these characters does end on a redemptive thing. But they almost killed her.
I mean, you're setting the bar pretty fucking low if not committing murder is like a great lesson. Also, they don't seem to recognize Rana as the girl from just a few hours earlier who is maybe going to sell them ecstasy. I mean, like, I get it, she's bloody and it's dark, but I kind of thought that was a missed opportunity where Zach, the Jay Moore character, he goes out of his way to protect her in that scene earlier. He tells her, go. And then she knows to flush the drugs and everything. He's doing a nice thing for her then. And then like a couple hours later is about to murder her. And it never even occurs to him of like, it's the same girl. Huh. How about that? Small world. I don't really know narratively what the payoff would be, but it just feels like that should have been acknowledged in some way for some reason.
I think that's fair. I guess on second viewing, you remember that they were gay, right?
No, I didn't, but it's foreshadowed because they walk by Claire in the supermarket and she says, oh, gay men are so ridiculously handsome. It's not fair. Then when they're talking to Burke, he's asking them about their girlfriends and they say that their girlfriends cheated on them. And then only later do we find out that they're in a relationship together and they both cheated on each other with the same guy.
Right, yeah.
I kind of forgot that little twist, but again, in the context of these people are pieces of shit, at first they're like, I cheated on you just that one time with this one guy and I was honest with you about it, but it was only once and I'm sorry. And then as the story goes on, you find out that no, they were both having this ongoing relationship with Jimmy from Makeup, and they were both fucking around over and over again, lying to each other, their boyfriends who they should be honest with. So no, they're pieces of shit too. And then like they get revenge on Jimmy by cutting off some of his hair, which I don't really understand. I mean, I guess he had nice hair, but I mean, Jimmy did a bad thing too, obviously, but also they were cheating on each other a lot and lying to each other a lot. So fuck these guys. These guys are assholes.
Well, again, I think the redemptive arc is, again, that the two of them seem to have forgiven each other and they both said fuck you to the lover. It wasn't one of those like, I want Jimmy. No, I want Jimmy. I think that's what they're going for. You know, I see your perspective, but I think from a narrative point of view, I think they end the movie together.
Sure. But let me ask you, James, what do you think about Go? Do you think the movie stands the test of time?
You know, there are a lot of small parts in this film that I like. I really like Manny. There is a scene where he kind of totally bugs out. Manny's looking at a cat, and the cat is looking at him, and just there's subtitles of what the cat's saying to him. And at first he's like, wow, I can like talk to a cat. And then the cat just says, I am going to kill you. I just thought that was funny. I do like how everything wraps up. And the very last line of the film, I remember thinking was both stupid but also realistic, because Manny, I think, is just he's a big partier. This guy almost died and overdosed and like choked on his own vomit, was almost killed by a drug dealer. He just leans over to the girls after they pick him up and he just goes, so what are we doing for New Year's? Also, we hadn't mentioned this film takes place over Christmas.
Yeah,
I think that's funny but stupid, because it's something like this dumb idiot Manny would say. And while I think it's an inferior film to Swingers, and I think that there are stronger and weaker storylines, I agree with you that some of the characters are absolute shitheads. Overall, I'm entertained by this movie. I had mentioned that I hadn't seen this film since it came out, and I think I maybe saw it once since then. I feel like I do want to watch this film again in about 10 years. It still stands the test of time for me. What do you think, Al? 1999's Go. I have a feeling what you're going to say, but I'd love for you to tell the listeners what you think.
There was one thing that I kept thinking throughout the time I was watching this movie, and even after. Did I like this movie when I first saw it in 99, 2000, whenever? I genuinely don't remember, but I really didn't like it now. And I do wonder how much of it is the movie not aging well, how much of it is me aging, you know, and just kind of growing out of this kind of thing. But I really, really just found this movie to be really fucking tedious. All of the characters are awful, awful fucking people who do awful, awful fucking things, and there's not really any good reason for any of it. The point of the movie is to just show, hey, these are young people doing wild, crazy things. Hey, remember what it's like to be young and impulsive and stupid. And I get that. I do. But it just doesn't work for me. I need something. I need a character who I like. I need a character who I'm rooting for. I want something to connect to. I can get into a TV show where all of the characters are shitty people, in part because it goes on a little longer. You get to know the people. Succession, we just started watching The Curse. All of these characters are awful, but you see why they're awful. Even though that doesn't excuse their shitty behavior, you understand it. I don't understand any of these characters. I'm not rooting for them to succeed. I'm not rooting for them to fail. It's not like I'm rooting for Simon to get killed by the bouncer or his dad, or for Rana to get busted. I just don't give a shit. And I read this really interesting article on The Ringer that came out for the movie's 20th anniversary. And John August, who wrote the movie, he was saying how he deliberately wrote the script to go against type, where in a lot of movies, especially movies about young people, teens, if it's going to take place over the course of one night, you expect the movie to be like, this night changed their life. This was the night that changed everything. And nothing changes for any of these characters. At the end of the movie, they're all exactly where they started from. And that's by design. And I appreciate that. I respect the guy bucking the trope, going against the grain. I do also think that's a little bit undone where Rana at the very end of the movie says that she's going to open up a savings account. It's kind of a joke. It's not meant to be taken seriously that that's character growth because she has $20 extra. So she's going to use that to open a savings account. But it's like, honestly, I think it would have been better without that. And it just going to, so what are we doing New Year's Eve? Because that drives home the point. They have learned nothing. But really, all of these jokes are just not fucking funny. We're going to sell kids ibuprofen and tell them they're ecstasy. You eat bad shrimp at a bad buffet. You make stinky poops. You put a tissue in your nose and then you light a joint and it starts a fire. Amway, that's stupid. These are not funny jokes. I love the fact that you use the word bros. This movie, it's so bro-y. And John August, by the way, has written other good movies. He wrote Charlie's Angels and Charlie's Angels Full Throttle. Those aren't bro-y movies. He wrote Big Fish. I fucking love Big Fish. He's capable of more. I'll give the movie credit for the needle drops. There are some very, very good needle drops. Specifically Steal My Sunshine and Magic Carpet Ride. I really like those. The Macarena that they were doing in the fucking supermarket, like, no, that was pretty stupid. Also, Melissa McCarthy in her very first movie ever. It's one scene, but she's great.
What's Melissa McCarthy in?
She's the roommate. She's Jimmy's roommate. When Adam and Zach go to confront Jimmy, they go to his apartment and she's the roommate and she's kind of giggling. Oh, you know, hee hee hee.
Oh, that's right. Oh, okay. Yeah. No, I didn't pick up that was her.
I mean, she looks young, but that's her. Jane Krakowski as the wife who's very, very fucking horny. She's great in this small role. I'll really give the most credit, I think, to the editor. This movie is edited brilliantly. It's really fast. It's frantic. It's supposed to be like you're high. Even when the Columbia Pictures logo starts at the very beginning, it cuts away because it's like showing you imagery from a rave. I think that's really fucking cool and I respect it. But I don't like this movie and I do not think it stands the test of time. But we talked a lot about drugs and drug use in this movie. We're going to keep that theme going for next week when, in honor of 420, my sister Samantha Noah is coming back on the show to talk about Half-Baked. She is very excited to talk about this movie. She's been bugging me for a while. It seemed like doing it for 420 was appropriate. So I'm very much looking forward to that conversation. Until then, we want to hear from you guys. We are at Tested Time Pod on Facebook, X, Instagram, and Threads. Let us know what you think about Go, what you think about these characters and rave culture and ecstasy and shooting bouncers and multi-level marketing schemes. Just don't try to pitch us on a multi-level marketing scheme. No thanks. But we'll see you next time, everybody.
Bye.